Alright, here we have Clitosabe nuda, very sexy name. And it's more commonly known as the Blewit. Now this mushroom is known to be a favorite among people who are beginning to eat mushrooms, which is, I find kind of strange because I've always had a little bit of difficulty identifying this one where I felt confident about it. But some things to look for is right away, when you look down on it, one of the things that catches my eye is the blue color. Bluish or purplish. But for me, when I run into it, more often blue. And I often see sort of it almost looks like it got soggy at the edges. And it feels sort of sticky and soggy at the edges. Those are a couple things that immediately start making me think that could be a Blewit. In our area, we're in the Piedmont of North Carolina. I might also be thinking like indigo milky. So I look closer, and often it's popping up, kind of pushing grass up. And Teresa, if you can get more of a kind of back up and get more of a view of the area, the bigger picture. When I collect a mushroom for identification, I always try to dig into the ground because it's really important to see how it comes out of the ground, whether it's got like a cup that it comes out of or not. I don't see any cup here. And typical...
Do you check the soil to see if there's anything?
Yeah, I mean, I pay attention to everything. And the stout base here, you know, that's one of the things. Like, instead of a long fibrous stalk, a really bulbous base. Often, it'll actually be thicker at the base, but that's something I don't always find. The gills, and this is what separates it from the other thing I'm thinking it might be right away, is indigo milky. That has really beautiful blue gills. And when I break an indigo milky, it'll have white, like sap coming out of it, white milk. This has salmon-colored gills, which is mostly what I see in a Blewit. Although one of the things that I think is kind of tricky about a Blewit is that's variable. And I think I already mentioned that Blewit is actually a misrepresentation of the term blue hat is what it was called. But, you know, Blewit, B-L-E-W-I-T. So I look at those gills, and they could be notched, which means there might be like a little dent before it joins the stalk. They could just be decurrent, which means it goes down the stalk a little bit. But there's variability in that too. But I look for those salmon, definitely not blue gills. When it's young, and I'm picking these because we're going to eat some of these tonight. Here's a younger one. And again, like I said, when I pick it, I try to really go down into the ground. And especially the young ones will have caps that sort of roll over the edge before they open up. Maybe we'll see an even younger one. I might leave that little guy alone. But, you know, pluck off the cap, and the cap is what I eat. And Teresa, if you can come over here. We tried to get a little spore print, which is always a good idea. Sometimes they can be harder to get than others, but we've got a little suggestion of spore prints here if that shows up on the camera. Especially when they're wet, when you don't get a full-blown spore print. If you have any doubt, don't eat it. But if everything else seems to fit, and it's just like, I kind of already think it's that, I just wanted confirmation, I'd feel pretty good about this little suggestion. So you're looking for a pink spore print with this, a generally pink color. So I definitely see pink here, and that's kind of a pinkish hue, and that separates it from some of the lookalikes that might be brown or something like that. You can often, with mushrooms, make a pretty good guess of what the spore print color is going to be by the color of the gills. Usually, it's the same color of the gills, but don't get overconfident in that, because that distinction, if you just assume that, can get you hurt if you get careless. We've got a couple mushroom books that we like to use that I always like to plug. Mushrooms Demystified by David Aurora. It might be the best mushroom guide I know. It's a little hard to use, but in going through all the keys to use it, you learn a lot about mushrooms, and it's so detailed. And he's really good about talking about lookalikes and what makes this mushroom mushroom and not another one. And for quick reference, again, we're in the Piedmont of North Carolina. I like the Audubon Guide to Mushrooms to just more quickly try to look it up and then use this one as confirmation. So yeah, I'm going to pick these. for our eating
small
pleasure.
one had a more of a rounded edge.
Yeah. So this is a better example of the enrolled cap. You know, as it gets older, it expands out. And yeah, apparently there's not too many things to mistake this with, but again, never eat a mushroom unless you look it up and you feel confident. If you rely on me or anybody else to do your homework for you, that's lazy, that's stupid, and eventually you're going to hurt yourself and maybe somebody else. So just do your own homework. Be careful. Don't be in any rush to eat these mushrooms. Another thing that's really often said about these is they can have, especially when they're fresh, a slight odor of frozen orange juice. I can kind of smell it on this younger one. This one just starts smelling really mushroomy to me, but the younger one, the fresh one, yeah, I can smell frozen orange juice on that. So that's another identification feature of the Blewit. And let's just show some of these others. This is a really, and Teresa, if you can kind of pan around, this is a typical habitat you find Blewit on, right beside a trail, even specifically under blackberry vines. In our area, this is where they really like to be. And where you see them, it's known to be really prolific. Like when we pick these, there will probably be another flush of these soon. And caretaking a mushroom, when I pick these to eat, I might take every mushroom that I see. I wouldn't do that with a plant because these are, the organism is underneath the ground, the mycelium. This is the fruit. So it's like picking every apple off an apple tree. It's not a good idea for the plant if you do it over and over and over because it can't reproduce the way it wants to. But if you find a flush and you do it once, you know, every now and then, and also let the mushrooms spread, I feel like that's good caretaking. It's such a good smell. But yeah, there's these little baby ones, and I often see them half buried in grass and stuff. But I just take the ones that look a little bit older. Some insects been nibbling a little on this. Unless I don't see it like overrun personally, I'm not that worried about it. But Blewits. And one more little patch I'll pick over here. And if Teresa, you want to add anything to that?
I did read that it would be interesting to check this out. It just rained like hell yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Both.
And it's been a little cool and a little warm. So these, I read, tend to grow later in the year, like through December. And also, I'd be curious to see, I read in one book that if you pick it, like you said, they'll grow back fairly quickly. So that would be great to have.
So we're going to experiment and see how true that is. But here's a nice fresh one that's got the enrolled margin, salmon-colored gills.
And the gills are like tightly packed in there.
Reminiscent of frozen orange juice. So there's a really typical Blewit. But it's said that even in fungophobic countries like England and places like that, where people are kind of scared of wild mushrooms, these mushrooms will tend to be popular. People feel pretty good about these. And it's said to have a really strong flavor. It's been so long since I've eaten one that I don't remember, but we're going to find out tonight. Cook it in with some beans, maybe. But yeah, anything else?
No, that's it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Blewit.
Thank you.